how have the protests affected how other nations view Canada?
I think it impacted big time because Canada has always been one of the known as the nicest country in the world. But seeing all these protests and seeing a lot of RCMP officers and defense people with sticks on their hand and guns loaded, it looks a little bit strange, and I think it did impacted the way people view us. Yeah, big time.
I consider it pretty embarrassing because I thought we were better than this, and we've seen the states do all their crazy stuff, so I thought it's just not how you properly do politics. I don't like it. So yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. Gonna be honest.
It is starting to look a little bit bad on us that we are so conflicted ourselves. But I mean, that's kind of the day and age we're in, where there's so much availability for discussions that it's really hard to have a middle ground stance.
Well, from what I've seen on the internet, as far as the other is what we're doing in Canada with the trucks and etc., everyone around the world is starting to do the same thing. And I think that people don't really know what else to do other than protest and honk their horns.
I think it's put Canada at shame. I don't go around and voice my opinion because I've been yelled at one too many times. I have the right to choose what I want to do, and so do the anti-vaxxers. But you have no right to come back to me and shout at me and tell me that I've done something wrong.
I don't think there's anything wrong with protests. Where would we be today if we hadn't had protests? Where would the women's vote be if we hadn't had protests? So I think protesting is great. Just keep it peaceful and safe for everybody.
Wow, that's a difficult one to answer because we are restricted. The only thing that we have to go by is what we see on TV and on the news. So that's difficult to see how they see us now. Do they see us as crybabies? Do they see us as basically wanting freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want it? I don't think that's fair, but I would not want to be in another country right now and say that I'm from Canada.
I think it's a mixed bag. There's been so much going on between the protesters, the governments, all the different sources of media, and even the misinformation from people online, that I think it's probably confused them about where we stand politically and as a nation.
So I do think it affects the way they see us, and obviously for countries where protesting and having that kind of show of unity for people who don't support vaccination and don't support the mandates, I think it was encouraging for them to see that because maybe they're not able to kind of have that show of unity in their own countries.
I have friends in England that said, "What is going on in Canada?" I said, "Well, we woke up." It has. I mean, some people really thought that the type of democracy we had, the way, we're looked at by the world, they thought we were great. And then they said, well, you're not that exempt from, I think the influence of past activities in the United States may have prompted the way this was handled in many ways. The Capitol, the attack on the Capitol and all that, so, yeah.
I think so. I have some family in the States, and they were certainly, interested in it. Put Ottawa on the map. We were in the papers everywhere in the States and around the world. So interesting, probably not in the best light. As Canadians, it's interesting because Canadians are seen as pretty docile people, especially here in Ottawa. We're all, most of us are public servants. So it was quite surprising, I think, to the rest of the world. But certainly a sign of, not that I support the convoy in any way, but I think it helped light a fire under, certain politicians.
I think it has, especially because some of the protests have spread. Protests like the ones in Ottawa have spread to other countries. New Zealand, for example, is a good reason. I'm sure everyone in Wellington knows that the people protesting there are taking their cues from the protests in Ottawa. So Canada's name is out there, not in a good way, unfortunately.
Oh, I really don't know. I think some will say great, some will say no. The fact that we did it without any bloodshed shows we aren't our neighbors to the south is what it boils down to. So I'm happy the way it played out with no one really getting no blood on the road.